You text me all the time about politics or what I think about this headline. I talk about politics every Friday. I try to figure out what's happened in the world in the headlines and how it pertains to real estate. But you're one of the funnest people to talk about this stuff with, and how whatever's happening with the headlines, the economy, elections, how it might translate and impact houses that we try to sell in our line of work.
Yeah.
You look so excited.
Well, it's the $1 million question, right? I mean, we're all trying to navigate this very complicated social experience that, we're
Maybe
in the
there's
middle of.
people out there not, though. Maybe there's people doing real estate not paying attention at all to what's happening with the economy and headlines.
And I wish I could be one of those people when you're having to forecast some of these projects out years and years and years and trying to, get into investing in the stuff, which a lot of people don't realize, like a project like we're sitting in right now started 5 years ago, just to get to this point. And so you're like rolling the dice.
I'm trying to remember what interest rates were 5 years ago, who was in office 5 years ago, what the policy was that's wild.
Yeah.
You and I have jobs that, whether most people in our lines of work realize, are heavily dependent on what's happening with the economy, which as of late is heavily dependent on what's happening with politics and the headlines and whatever the latest rhetoric is, right? I, every week, am trying to process all this information so that I can digest it for realtors to be able to explain to their clients, and then also so that it can inform my conversations and the guidance I give my own clients. As a builder, do you think most are paying as much attention to what's happening with the economy as you do?
No, I don't think so. I think it's how they feel almost weekly. Like, it seems like in this, it's like some weeks people feel really good, and then some people like, oh my gosh, like, what are we doing right now? And I think they make purchases, especially big ones, about how they're feeling like today, not how they were feeling yesterday. Like, it's like, how are you feeling like today? You know what I mean? And I've definitely noticed, and I don't know if you have, but when things are feeling good and when they're relatively calm, people start feeling good, and then they start thinking about buying real estate or making purchases or buying a car or whatever they're gonna buy.
That's been studied. And behavioral finance and the wealth effect of that, people will spend more money regardless of the actual math or running any numbers based on their mood. But lately, everything has been so chaotic. The headlines have been really heavy. The news has been very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And still, we're feeling a momentum shift where people are paying more attention to housing. So even though they're not necessarily feeling good about the life and the world and everything in general, I think they're starting to feel good about housing. I think they're latching on to some hopeful headlines when it comes to real estate.
I mean, I've seen a difference. Have you? Like, in the last couple of weeks?
In activity?
I mean, I don't know what switched here in probably the last 3 weeks, but something has definitely changed. And, I know me and you talk, once a week, usually when you call me back. But we won't talk about that. But we usually talk once a week, and we just talk about what the activity was and all that kind of stuff. We
always talk once a week because I always return the call.
Not the last couple of weeks, you haven't. But like I said, we'll leave that part out. But
Speaking
the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks, don't you feel like in the last 3 weeks something has changed?
But let me ask you this. For sure, something's changed. For mortgage applications, the data shows they're up a ton. Yeah. We're seeing more activity. We're seeing more multiple offer situations, at least here in Northern Nevada. Let me ask you this. Are you seeing any change in behavior when it comes to custom home builds or people having interest in renovation projects?
Yeah. Well, not only do we do projects like this, I mean, we do, remodels and custom homes too. And the custom homes over the last year and a half have definitely been slower. I think we've had conversations about that before. The remodel and addition activity is at an all-time high. I
really?
mean, it is. I think people have come to the realization that they have such a great rate. They have a ton of equity in their houses, and they don't want to go spend all that equity on something that costs, way more than what they paid.
And will impact their lifestyle.
They like their neighbors. They like their neighborhood. I like their schools. And where before, I think the mentality was, hey, we don't want to go through a renovation project. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's even worse than building a custom home. But it's like, that's our only choice. Like, we got to expand. And we've done a lot of those in the last couple of years. And we got a ton of them on the books right now that we're doing. And so, but the custom home activity has just recently picked up in the last like 3 weeks, and it's usually pretty dead before in the, the December, January, February. It's usually
Right.
after Super Bowl that those people, that come back around, and we've had that happened here in the last few weeks, which is pretty normal. But the remodel and the addition activity, all time high. Never had so much of that stuff going on.
That's really interesting, but it makes perfect sense with what you're explaining. Like, I know that people are sitting on a ton of equity, people have amazing interest rates, and people have really wild spending habits right now. So they don't want to buy a new house with a new mortgage payment at current interest rates that's going to impact their whole lifestyle. They'd rather tap into some of their equity and make this home better.
And let's talk about equity, right? Because equity, like me and you were talking about, I thought it was really interesting when, I don't remember who it was in the Fed, and then Trump was like, hey, I want to protect people's equity. And I don't think...
Oh, yeah. He said I could crush home prices.
I could crush home prices. And I thought that was interesting because I've been saying that for a long time. We all want home prices to be low. But are you willing to give up your equity in your house so somebody else can take advantage of that price? And I would be willing to bet you every single person that owns a home that has tons of equity in it is going to say, no, I'm not willing to give up the equity in my house, to do it. But I will reinvest it in my house, which is smart, because they used to, back in 2008, take the equity out of their house, and they used to go buy cars and boats and stuff like that. Now, at least they're taking the equity and they're putting it back into their house, which is, very smart. But I thought that was an interesting comment that they made about, we don't want to lower the price of houses. And I've been saying this for years. The prices of houses are not coming down. They're just not. So wages now have to outgrow, the cost of things. You know what I mean? So we got to get the wages up, but the costs have got to maintain. Unfortunately, they have to, because you want deflation, right? I mean, you're better at the economy than me, but you don't want deflation.
We don't want home prices to go down. Trump was spot on when he said that would be a nightmare. And it's also something we're not going to see happen in an election year. No party is coming to save anyone who's waiting for home prices to come down, because it's not in their best interest to screw over a huge voting block like that. The amount of equity that Americans are sitting on is trillions of dollars. But I think what's interesting about this whole, home prices, what do we want to do with the money? How do we want to help affordability? I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think there's nuance to it, and it comes back to the basics on inflation, right? Like you were saying, we don't want deflation. Kevin Warsh last week made some commentary that moved interest rates in a really positive direction, because he said that he thinks the Fed could afford to cut interest rates and not worry about inflation because of AI. So before I explain that, let me back up and explain.
Oh, yeah.
So if we're not going to lower home prices, then we need to lower interest rates, right? That's the only other lever to pull, really, with affordability. Because even if we build more homes, that takes years upon years. A home doesn't just pop up like this. Even the big builders who put them together like Legos, it still takes time to pull the permits, get the development approved, all that. That takes time to put on more inventory, and more inventory will bring down prices if there's an oversupply, right? So then the other lever to pull is lower interest rates, and that's what everybody's been banking on. That's what people are feeling hopeful about. Yeah. Trump made the announcement about the $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities and pushing government entities to purchase those. That also created a rally in mortgage bonds, because the Fed has two levers to pull with reducing interest rates. They can cut the short-term rate, or they can manage their balance sheet and buy more mortgage bonds. When they buy more mortgage bonds, mortgage interest rates improve. Kevin Warsh said last week they could afford to cut their short-term rate because AI might boost productivity in our country so much so that we won't have to worry about prices going up. What do you think about that?
I think that's probably accurate. I mean, like I said, I listen to all these politicians talk about, we want to drop the prices and want to drop the prices. But do you really want to drop the prices? I don't think you do. And
I don't think you...
So the affordability is not just about building smaller houses on cheaper. You got to remember, lumber still is relatively expensive. Nails, wire, and everything that goes into a house.
Did the cost of those materials come down?
No.
when they
No, the
shot
costs,
up all the way.
no, they did level. Over the past 2 years, they've leveled, but they have definitely not dropped. I mean, not even close to dropping. They're maintaining, and that's good. Stable, maintain. The prices of houses have stabilized and maintained. And what you're seeing, I think, and you would know more about this than I would be, is like the price reductions are not because the houses are cheaper. The price reductions are because the builders are willing to, to decrease their margins in
Well, and
order to make
builders
it.
have trauma from
Yeah.
the last time they were sitting with a lot of inventory.
Right.
So I think that they are more reactive to any sitting inventory than most homeowners or smaller builders are.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about that, but it's an interesting process for sure. I wish we all would know exactly what was going to happen, but going back to our original point, something's definitely happened here in the last couple weeks, and I don't know if it was the Fed giving some how I kind of see it. I don't know if you saw this, but it was like the one thing you say about Trump, whether you like him or hate him or not, when he turns his head and focuses on something usually happens. So, and now we can argue whether that's good or bad, but something usually happens. And I saw him rotate, or his administration rotate towards housing finally, when we were all like, you gotta do something about housing. Like, please, like there's some tools that you can use to fix this. And when he rotated, that's when something clicked. We saw interest rates go back down. He said something stupid, like a lot of times he does, and then they shot back up again. Right? I don't remember what that was, but
He started the investigation into the Federal Reserve.
He started, which and then that kind of stuff happens, and it's like, well, if you would have just
stayed
pat and just said, I'm rotating towards housing, and I would
we would have seen that rally continue.
A rally continue, which it kind of squashed it. But I was happy to see that there was definitely a rotation. You know what I mean? To okay, we got to get this housing market moving again.
I think the cycle, because I paid a lot of attention to that, right? Because we saw such a big jump. I'm just one person. I had 12 loan applications come in the next day after he made that announcement. Yeah. And 12 doesn't seem like a big number, but again, I'm just one loan officer in the country serving a very small market. And to see that kind of jump, to me, it was like, we got to figure out why this happened, because the math didn't change that much on affordability.
Was it refis?
No.
Who's new houses too?
It was pre-approvals.
Or
people looking to shop.
Or something like that, people shopping.
I didn't have that much. I didn't have any refi come from that because the math didn't change that much, because he curbed it the next day with the subpoenas he served the Federal Reserve.
Wasn't enough time to react.
It wasn't enough time to analyze a refi and lock in a rate. But I saw a big jump in people going out and shopping for homes, and I started paying a lot of attention and like trying to figure out. And I was thinking about what you said to me, because you said this whole thing about Trump turning his head and focusing on housing. And I'm like, why did this make such a big difference? And I think the psychology behind it is people are reassured that he's not going to let home prices crash, because he said he's not going to.
No, I don't think he's going to.
And then I think people want to feel validated about wanting to buy a home. They want someone to say, it's okay that you want to buy a home when the world is in chaos. It's okay that you want to buy a home when homes are expensive. It's okay that you want to buy a home. The American dream is not dead.
I don't think that you're going to be able to change people's minds when they're in chaos. So it goes back, what we were just talking about at the very beginning was how people are feeling like that day. If there can be a calm period where we don't have this crazy things going on, I'm almost confident that would spark.
Where you'd see more activity from buyers?
Way more. I think that would spark a new home, sell off, or a new home buying spree. I really do. There's so much built up.
Pent up demand
that people just haven't been moving, or they're not happy where they're at. And so now I think they're kind of desperate, and they're kind of feeling like that. So there's remodels and additions and stuff, are taking place, but they would move if the opportunity was right, if they felt right, if the interest rates were right. They realize that the prices are not going to crash, which they're not. We've been saying this, me and you have been saying this for years. They're not coming down. They're just not. And you're losing out on a buying opportunity. Yeah, you got to be able to afford the house. I mean, you can't have 60% of
You can't be house poor.
You can't be house poor going towards your mortgage. But at the same time, there's also a large population that's going to miss this opportunity, and so
And I feel bad for them because I think
too.
it's going to be, there's not going to be another, there's such a entry point right now. Everyone's sick of hearing me say this, but
what is this? What would you even say is the, I know what the statistics say about the entry level price of a house. What is that even? I don't know what that is.
like
Is it
now,
in the 500s? I mean, is it 4s, 5s? What is it?
that's a tough question because people are willing to make different choices, right? I will have buyers come into my office who understand that they just need to get into a home and they will buy whatever they can qualify for. On the other hand, you have buyers come into your office saying, I'm not willing to miss one music festival. I'm not willing to not have the nicest car.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to change my lifestyle in any way to make a mortgage payment fit into my life. And so they're not parking their BMW outside a $300,000 home on the outskirts of town.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to buy something that's like $1 million as their starter home. And that's where you see those Wall Street Journal headlines that the starter home now costs $1 million. It doesn't. You can buy properties for less, and you should be. But this generation, that first time home buying age now is in your 30s and 40s. People are accustomed to a certain lifestyle and they're not willing to live somewhere that doesn't check every box at that age. So I think that's the real reason we're seeing the starter home price go up, is because people have gotten bougier.
Well, and also they're waiting longer, so they're more invested in their careers.
Yes.
They're making a lot more money by the time that they do it. And I think you're probably right that they don't want to live in a certain area of town if they're accustomed to a certain lifestyle. So they would rather rent in that area.
Yes.
Right? They would rather rent in that area until it gets to the point where they feel like they have to buy.
And there's all kinds of financial influencers out there condoning that for them, validating it for them. Like I just said Trump did for the whole country for people who want to buy.
Right.
He validated that. There's plenty of noise out there validating that you don't have to buy a home. The American dream is dead. It's not a good investment. You should put that money in crypto or the stock market or do something. You should start your own business. It's not necessarily bad advice, but I just personally think that any financial influencers who's telling you to not buy and invest the money elsewhere has to also take into account your housing expense then. When they run their models on return on investment, they need to cancel out a couple $1,000s that you're not getting any return on. But I digress.
Yeah.
So you said you guys do a lot of other stuff besides where we're sitting. Where we're sitting is 18 on Lakeside, which is 18 luxury townhomes. They're specific, right?
They are.
There's a certain type of person who wants to live here. But before we get into that, let me ask you $1 million question. Mm-hmm. If you could go back in time, knowing like if you had a crystal ball of what chaos the world would be in, would you have released this project at a different time?
It's a really tough, good question. And when you get into real estate developing, you are rolling the dice. And no, do I want to be sitting on, inventory? No builder wants to be sitting on inventory. But the simple fact is that we are, and most builders are sitting on spec houses and inventory. The difference between now and, 2008 was that we're not sitting on 60 of these, you know what I mean? So we can hold tight, as long as we need to until we need to sell them, you know what I mean? And so, like I said, we've been sitting tight here. Sales here have been, they're not flying off the shelves, but we kind of knew that when we started this product, that they weren't just going to fly off the shelves, because you're right, this is a specific client that you're after.
Aside from the chaos that followed, when these hit the market, interest rates were at 7%.
They were, but the ramp up to it when we started 5 years ago, they were not 7%. So by the time that you get the ball rolling down the road, and a lot of people don't see it. Just they think that the project, by the time it goes vertical, like it's like 50% done, at that point. So all the hard part takes years to get
Crazy to think like that.
you know what I mean? So at that point, you're already invested. Like you have to go. Like you can't just hold tight and then just be like, oh, I'm going to wait and not go vertical until the interest rates drop, because who knows when that's going to be. And then by the time the interest rates drop, you could be too late. Right. So by the time it takes, 4 months, to get these things done, interest rates could be back up 7%. So like I said, it's a very difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
I would have still started the project, not knowing what's going on, in the world. I probably would have done the exact same thing if I were to go back. I mean, listen, hindsight's always 20/20, right? So, yeah, I would, I would always probably try to go back and make things, maybe more cost effective, you know what I mean, in certain ways that you're trapped, like a lot of us are, on the builder side of it. We're trapped with the amenities, we're trapped with the designs, we're trapped with those things that we have to ride through those things. On a product like this, you can't redesign it. I can't just decide, you know what, I'm gonna cut a level off the top of these, and that's just not how it works with this. So there's some builders that can do that midstream. This is not a product that you can do that on. But like I said, to go back to answer your question, yeah, I probably would have. Just done the same exact thing.
When we look at now, since we don't need a crystal ball, if you see what's happening right now in Reno, if you see what's happening with the market, with interest rates, we're likely going to sell out on these this year.
Yeah.
Will you do this project again?
I probably... I would do this project again. I wouldn't do it in the next, we're smaller builders, so we can only do one project at a time. Our next one that we're going to do is probably more single family focused, meaning, individual houses.
Oh, that's cool.
I think that we'll probably
Why
go
haven't you
back to
told me
that.
about this?
Because I just decided that like 3 days ago. If you would have called me back, I would have told you that.
I'm going to show the call log at the end of
You're
this.
going to check your call log, because I'm telling you, you're not right. So I'm willing to bet lunch on it.
People make up their own narratives in 2026. You want to make up a narrative that I'm too busy to call you back, but I did call you back.
I think you're too busy calling all those people back that you're, trying to qualify for houses.
Oh.
I think that's what it was.
Okay, so who is this the perfect townhome for? Who is this the perfect place to call home? I have my own opinions.
This is a lock and leave community. So what we've had the most interest in is people that want to be able to lock the door and leave and go on vacation for a month or 2 months, or go back and visit, or go back home. Like we have one of our
owners
now, thank you, that they don't live here, right? So then they come here and they visit family that's here, and then they go back home. But it's their place, so it's not a motel they have to stay in. They don't want to.
They can be comfortable. They can leave all their
They
stuff.
don't want to feel like they're infringing on their relatives, I'm assuming. And then working professionals, for sure. Working professionals are definitely another person that's going to be buying, here. So, and I would say small families. I still think this is a great spot for small families. I really do. We got a park next door. We got a pickleball court. I think the small family thing, I think that's coming. I think young
couples you're thinking?
I do. Yeah, I think young couples, 1, 2 kids maximum, I think probably this would be a great spot for them.
The buyer for these townhomes that I was talking to last night, what he loved about them the most is the location. Because you can't find brand new construction in the 89509 zip code, all that. Like, it's not everywhere, right? Usually what you're buying in this part of town, if you have contemporary tastes, you're going to be spending a lot of money to bring this whatever property you purchase up to date. Like the homes, this is not a newer part of town.
We don't have any competition in this area when it comes to new houses, but we also, there's a downside of that because we kind of get hidden here. We're hidden.
Oh, when people are looking for new construction.
Yeah, when they're looking for new construction, they don't think to come into the inner circle, right? They don't think to come back into the urban middle. They're looking out. And so that's one thing that we struggled with is making sure that people know, hey, there's another option over here. You don't have to be in Damani Ranch. You don't have to be in the North Valleys. You don't have to be in Northwest Reno. There's other options inside of the McCarran Loop that are brand new construction that aren't huge 300, house communities, but we're still here. Right. And so that's been a little bit of a challenge for us too. So
He loved though that it's new construction, that it's centrally located, that you are still in like central Reno, and that it has so much character. Because he said when he's looked at new construction, he has to leave central Reno, like you're saying, but he also loses the character and like the charm. Yeah. This feels like, and it speaks to the fact that it does have a niche audience, but this feels like a very unique lifestyle. Like it's got walkability, it's got the pickleball court, it's got a central location where you can easily get to all kinds of places, but it feels like upscale.
Especially when you get inside of them. Like, especially when you get in here, you don't realize that, you know what I mean, you have neighbors right next door. You really don't.
No,
and that's the truth.
Feels like a single family home.
So it feels like a single family home. You don't really see your neighbors, not really a way to see them. You're going to look across the street, but you do that at your house in Money Ranch. I mean, you're going to look across the street, you're going to be in your backyard, you're going to see your neighbor. But when you're in these, you don't feel like you have a neighbor, in my opinion. So they're very private. And
I think it's
a unique living. I think some people are just like, oh man, I would never live in a townhouse. I mean, and Reno is a single family home market. Area. And so, I wouldn't build 300 of these. But I think 18, 20 of them is a perfect size that we can just kind of infill. It's so to try to tell people that, hey, there's another lifestyle out there. Like, can you imagine never having to like take care of your grass ever again, or not having to worry really about the maintenance on the outside, or you don't have to worry about the snow removal, or you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's just all that stuff's taken care of for you. And
which are real reasons people don't want to buy.
Just push lock on the door and you can walk out of this and you don't have to come back for 6 months if you don't want to. I mean, yeah. Honestly, there's no maintenance here. You don't have to come back. You could set the thermostats in here at 67 degrees, 65 degrees, and literally walk away and not come back here for a year, and there would be no problems with this.
I think that this is definitely for the person. Like if we were going to describe the person who lives in these homes, it's the person who doesn't want to be held down by their house. They want to own real estate. They want to build that wealth. They want to have a key and a home base in one of the best neighborhoods in Reno, but they don't want home ownership to take over their life. They don't want it to dictate what they can do this weekend or next month, where they're going, the life they live.
Why didn't we think about that when we were buying our houses? Because how strapped down you are to all that stuff. So going back to what I was just saying about like being able to walk out of this house for a year, you know how like freeing that would be to be like.
That's where you went in your head as you were living.
Yeah, like I can't walk away from my house that I live in. I don't know.
You can't walk away from your life.
No, I can't walk away from all the grass that needs to be mowed and the plants that need to be trimmed and
the phone calls that need to be returned.
Yeah, you forget about that. You could have time to call people back if you had a house like this.
So what's going to happen in Reno with, you said it's a single family home place, but the cost of living here is higher. Homes cost a lot in Reno. And affordability is on the tip of everyone's tongue, because as you started this podcast explaining, as homeowners, as Reno locals, we love to say that we want our kids to be able to buy homes in Reno one day.
Or anywhere.
But as long as that doesn't impact my home value right now, like,
you're not giving up your equity, so one of your kids could go buy a house.
Right. I don't want my prices to crash. And this is well evidenced by what we're seeing happen just down the street with Lake Ridge Golf Course, right? Mm. People had signs, all my neighbors had signs in their yards saying to vote against letting the golf course subdivide or sell any bit of it to be developed. Huh. And the city just voted to allow 12 and a half acres of the driving range to be developed into a boutique hotel or some sort of commercial development. And people have a lot of opinions about this. And I honestly, for once, can see both sides on it, because in my line of work, I understand that more housing benefits the cost of all housing. Even if what you build
but there's no housing there, right? It's a it's a hotel, right? Like a
Okay, but
it's like that concept. I think that Duncan is proposing to do that is more like I think you're going to stay there at the golf course. You're going to play golf, and then
yes,
you're
but
going to
do you
go.
know that people are all up in arms saying that eventually they'll develop the whole golf course? It's going to start with this little bit, and then they're going to develop the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, they're in the golf course business. I don't think that's what they're. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That project that well. It honestly, when I saw what they were doing, I thought it actually was a pretty decent idea. Remember that driving range is useless. Like you can't now that they just built houses in back of it. I mean, I couldn't hit the ball that hard, but there's a lot of people that could hit the ball that hard. You know what I mean? So the driving range is useless. So I guess the question is, would you rather just look at a barren
No,
piece
that's
of
not
dirt?
the question that I'm
or
going to
would
make you answer. Pay attention. Stay with me.
Okay, I don't know what your question is.
Because you didn't let me say it.
Say it.
Okay, so people being up in arms about developing the golf course, right? This comes back to a bigger question of if you want homes to be affordable, you have to be pro-development. You have to be pro-density. You have to allow there to be more homes built, which we don't like. And I will remind you, there are 2 golf courses in the 89509 zip code. That's not normal. Normally, you see golf courses out on city outskirts, not in areas that could be a lot of homes. And I'm not saying that we develop the golf courses because this is my backyard.
No,
This impacts me as a homeowner too.
It would be highly against that.
But
even as a developer, I would be highly against that. But taking a portion of a golf course, especially a portion that's not usable.
ask the question.
But I think you're conflating. I see where you're going with this, but I think you're conflating the two.
Okay.
We're going to start arguing like a married couple here. Because what his proposal
I thought
is,
we had been.
Yeah, his proposal is what he's doing there is not housing. That's like a boutique hotel is what he's proposing, from my understanding.
Yes, and then I'm taking the question further.
Now, if you're talking about the other interesting question, which is going on in Wingfield Springs about taking the whole golf course, and if their intention is to take the whole golf course, that would be. I don't think that I would be completely against that.
Why?
Because especially in Wingfield Springs, I'm not even going to go here because I don't think, honestly, that's what their intention is over here. I really don't. In Wingfield, they've made it clear that's what their intention is. Like they want to take that and they want to turn that Hills course and the Lakes course in Wingfield Springs into houses, basically. And I just, if you are doing those people out there so wrong that signed up to have a golf course lot, that paid to have a golf course lot, built houses on a golf course lot, which I built many on the golf course out there. I have many clients, and they're completely upset about it. And they have the right to be. I'd be furious too. I don't know what loophole they have there. I mean, I think that's a pretty. It seems pretty ironclad to me that when they agreed to that development out there, it was it was 36 hole golf course, and so. But I'm sure that they figured out a way to try to get around that. And I don't think that is the right answer to infilling golf courses, especially ones like that were built 40 years ago that I'm not in their business, but I don't know why that golf course is not profitable. I don't understand. It should be completely paid for by now, and this should be a cash cow. I
was never going to make you say what you thought, so thanks for offering that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I feel pretty strongly about the Wingfield one. I think
I could see why.
Growing up in Sparks, and I watched that whole development take place. I mean, what is Sparks going to be without those 2 golf courses? It's not going to be the same. I'm going to be shocked if
it ends up
that
happening?
city council approves that. I don't know how they could look their constituents in the face and say, yeah, I voted for that. It's a good idea. I just don't understand how that's a good idea. And that's coming from a developer standpoint. And I'm sure those lots aren't going to be cheap. So
but this makes sense to me. I know that you would feel this way too, because I think that you've built homes on that. You're tied to you understand the other side, the point of view of the homeowner.
Yeah.
Who puts
bad for those people.
Yeah, who puts their life into buying this, especially in your case, building this beautiful home under certain terms and then having those terms change. I totally get that. What I think is the interesting question is how much do we want to solve the affordability crisis versus Like, what are the actual means available to us to do that? And I wouldn't be willing to give my opinion on what should happen yet, because I'm torn. Like, I'm torn on the fact that I do want there to be more homes for Reno people to buy. I know that we could bring more physicians here. We could bring more business owners here. I know we could bring things this city needs if we had more homes, even if they're expensive homes, because I think that will bring in, I believe strongly that more housing at any price point, it filters down and it relieves pressure throughout. But I don't know the answer personally to wanting the golf course in my backyard developed.
I don't think that is the right strategy. There's even a more controversial one, and that's the really the answer to affordability in Reno Sparks is going to be acquiring BLM land, and that's even more of a
Why is that more controversial?
Well, because on both sides of the aisle, like all these land bills and stuff just get obliterated by both Republicans and Democrats because. And for good reason. We in the West, we love our open space. We all enjoy it to be able to get in our trucks or side by sides or quads and go enjoy, public land, and that's super important. But public land is, for a developer side, is affordable land. It's cheap land. So when they open up BLM land to developers, that's the cost of those lots are a lot less expensive than what it would be to go buy private land from somebody. So when you can buy land for cheap, then the price of the house is lower. You don't have to be a rocket science to.
Because it starts there.
It starts right there in the cost of the land, the lots.
You think people will live out there in these?
Oh, I think for sure. I mean. But I also understand the other point too is like we don't want to start giving up our open spaces and land like that. You don't get that back once you give that part up. Like there's no getting it back. So once it becomes private, that's it. It's somebody can develop it however they would like. So I know there's a fine line there, and I think there's some give and take there. I think there's some BLM land that they can give up, especially around the outskirts of the town here, that are relatively easy to build, and that could help solve the affordability problem a little bit.
Okay, so something you're torn on.
It is. I am torn on that. I'm not torn on the Wingfield Springs golf course community. I understand, the Lake Ridge golf course thing. I think they're different. I would not be in favor of them turning that golf course into a development for sure, because I think golf courses are open space. That's how I kind of look at them. And people bought, with the promise that golf course was going to be there for the entire life of, forever. And so I think you're going back on that promise if you decided to do that.
I don't like to pay you compliments very often, but I've also seen that you don't go back on promises you make people.
Thank you.
So I will say that, and then we'll close on your two stances, which are the record should show you're not pro developing any golf courses.
No.
And then my record should show I called you back.
No, you didn't.
So we'll end
and we'll
there.
prove that, but that's inaccurate. Hopefully she calls you back.
It's over now. I'm done talking to him.